Okay, it is October 28th, the week of Halloween, and this is Science of Cooking. And for today, we're going to show you guys how to do Rice Krispie Pumpkins, right? Something that's fun, simple, easy, and let you be a little bit creative as we go, right? So the first thing I'm going to do today is start melting some candy chocolate, okay? There are different kinds and brands that you can find in the cake decorating sections of your stores. Stuff that looks like this here, right? Little chips. And this is the candy chocolate, okay? Little discs. They call it a coating chocolate as well, right? So I've got some green and I've got some milk chocolate pieces here. And we're going to be using this to decorate the pumpkins after. So I just want to put these on to the heat so they can slowly start to melt. One thing that I find with coating chocolate, though, is it tends to get a little grainy sometimes. So I am going to add in about a teaspoon's worth of vegetable shortening, okay, just a Crisco, into each of the different bowls, into each of the colors, right? And that's going to help give this a little bit more smoothness as it's melting, and it'll be less grainy, okay, as it sits, because we're not going to be using it right away. But that's why we're going to have it on low. So on the stove back here, I got a couple of pots of water, about a third of the way up, and it's just barely steamy, right? You don't want it boiling. You don't want to get water in your chocolate. So I'm going to take and I'm going to set that on top. You want to make sure that you have a towel handy, so in case you need to quickly pull the bowl off of the steam pot, okay? So I'm going to put the chocolate one over here. And I'm just going to let those sit, and I'm going to stir them occasionally, just to make sure that they get melted all the way through. And that's going to be to decorate the pumpkins when I'm all done. Okay? Now, for our pumpkins today, basic Rice Krispie treats, right? Except we're going to color them and we're going to decorate them, right? So it's just to jazz them up a little bit. So this is going to start off with some butter. I'm going to use some unsalted butter, marshmallows to make our binder, right, for the cereal. And then we'll add the cereal in. But I'm also going to add in the color when I'm doing this melting process. That way I can get an even, consistent color all the way through. So if you ever want to color any of your treats for the different holidays, add it in when you melt your marshmallows, okay? So I've got a pan set up here with a silicone nonstick type spatula, right? You can use a wooden spoon. I would spray the wooden spoon, though, with a little bit of nonstick cooking spray, just so that way it doesn't stick to everything, because once you start working with marshmallow, it starts to get gooey, right? So I'm going to put this heat on, and I don't need it too high, just need it on low, okay? And I'm going to melt 3 tablespoons of unsalted butter. So remember when you're looking at your sticks of butter, right, that each one of these little lines down here at the bottom is a tablespoon. So all you have to do is find that mark and slice it off with a knife, and you get a tablespoon. So we're starting with 3 tablespoons of unsalted butter. If all you have is salted, that's fine too. It's not enough of a salt to change the flavor of your Rice Krispie treats, okay? So we're gonna start with melting the butter down. You can already hear it sizzling in the pan there. And then I'm gonna be using, once that's fully melted, a whole bag, 10-ounce bag of large marshmallows, right? Now, the recipe that I put for you in Google Classroom as well tells you can also use 4 cups of mini marshmallows. So if that's all you happen to have on hand, you can use both. Just know that the mini marshmallows are going to melt much faster. Okay, so you're definitely going to want to monitor that heat as you're doing this. Okay. So we're letting our butter melt down. And now I'm going to add in the marshmallows. So it's going to be the whole bag. Okay, use carefully, because hot butter, if it splatters on you, will burn. Okay. We've got our pot up here. Now, as this is melting, you want to stir thoroughly. Okay, so we're trying to get this into one smooth marshmallow cream. Okay, now in your recipe, you can also see there are microwave directions for this. If you don't want to do it on the stove top, just be really mindful that you're not cooking it too fast or too hot in the microwave, because it'll make one heck of a mess. I usually just do these in the pan because it's so fast and easy. And I like to be able to really watch everything melting and coming together. Okay. So we're just going to let that start to melt to do its thing. It needs a little bit, a few minutes, right? Now, talking about food coloring, Okay, you can use the little liquidy ones from, you know, the grocery store and things like that, but just know that they're it may make your mixture a little bit more watery. Okay, these are cake decorating colors you can get in any cake decorating supply store. They are a paste food color. There's also ones that are called gel food colors, and those are much thicker concentrate. But also know that because they're thicker and concentrated, you don't need to use as much color either as those little liquid watery ones. Okay, so do these like kind of, especially when you're new to it, do it a drop at a time, right? Or it's going to be electric and glowing. Unless you want really, really bright pumpkins. Okay. Melt down our marshmallows here. It's starting to come together. Right, so it's starting to goo. So I'm going to turn this heat down just a little bit. Now that it's coming together. And I'm going to add in my color at this point. So I'm going to do a couple of good drops to get a really nice bright orange. Because remember, I'm going to mix this in with the cereal too. So I will lose some of that color once I add the cereal in. So I want to go a little bit on the brighter side, right? So you can see there. Okay, nice, shiny. These are almost all the way melted. Remember to scrape the sides and the bottom. Now, this is going to get, once this is fully melted, you're going to add in 6 cups of Rice Krispie cereal to this, okay? And that's something that you want to have measured out ahead of time, all right? You don't want to stop when your marshmallow is all melted and start trying to measure out the cereal, okay? You can use, you know, original Rice Krispies, or you can use store brand, that's fine. Whatever you can find. I know it's hard to find a lot of things in the stores lately, so whatever you can find and whatever you can afford. You know, I'm just using store brand marshmallows here today because that's what they had. Right. So I'm just waiting for those last little bits of marshmallow to finish melting down. But you can see that pretty color of the orange, right? So if you wanted to go a little bit brighter, you can. I'll show it better for you guys. Mix that color all the way in. Now I already pre-measured out my cereal. Stir in that. Right, ready to go. So you could have this in a bowl, all measured out, and it's 6 cups total. So you want to make sure you have a nice level measuring cup full when you do it each time. That way you can make a nice batch. You want it to be sticky, but you want to make sure you have enough cereal in there so that it holds together. But if you have too much, you may not have enough marshmallow. Okay, so this is shutting that off. I'll move this to the side just a little bit. A couple little bubbles in there of marshmallow, but that extra heat will just do its thing. Okay. So I'm going to set down the towel here on the counter. All right. You can see this marshmallow up close. Okay. You see that. And see, now you get a nice, smooth, even color, and that's why you want to do this when it's melted. Always add the color in when it's melted. If I try and add it to the treats after, there's no way I'd be able to blend this all in, right? So now I want to add in all 6 cups of my Rice Krispies. And then you got to stir really good. You definitely want to scrape down to the bottom of your pan. Right, because I want to get that orange marshmallow on everything. I don't want to leave any dry cereal. And doing this with color actually makes it a little bit easier to mix, right? Because you can see everything really well. Now, Rice Krispie treats are notoriously sticky, okay? So as we're shaping this and molding this, that is the hardest part, right? Is that it's sticky, okay, and gooey. But that's what makes it so good, right? Whether you're a kid or you're a grown-up. All right, I really don't know anybody who doesn't like a good Rice Krispie treat. Okay, so now I'm going to slide this off to the side for a second here. Like I said, I just got it on the towel just because that pan is so warm. And we're just going to quickly check in with a chocolate back here. See, so I've got these on low. right? And they're starting to melt and do their thing. We want to leave that. So always check in on your stuff as you're going. Now, scooping this gets a little bit messy, okay? But we want to make our pumpkin shapes. So I've got my silicone mat here to put down on the counter. You could use parchment paper as well, right? And I'm going to measure out a 1/2 cup size pumpkin, right? So use a little nonstick cooking spray all over the cup. Okay, so I'm going to spray that. Another trick for this, put some on your hands, right? Hands clean, wash. But this way it's not sticking to you either. Not great for your computer, but that's okay. All right, so now we've got our treats here. They're all mixed and blended. I'm going to take this to help give me a size guide, right? So I said, so about a 1/2 cup. And you'll get about a dozen pumpkins out of this. By having your hands greased though, right? I can easily measure out how much I want. So I'm going to try to get 12 equal size little balls here that I'm going to shape in a second. And this is when you got to work kind of quickly when you're doing these, right? You don't want to have too cool of a draft in your workstation either. You don't want them to cool down too fast. You won't be able to shape them. Right? But I'm kind of shaping them into little ball shapes anyways, right? Hands getting a little sticky. Non-stick spray comes in handy every time. And something that most people have, you know, for regular cooking anyways. If you don't have any on hand, use a little vegetable oil or a little shortening. Right? Any of those will work. Right? Now the messiest part of this too after is going to be this pan. So give it a good soak. It'll clean right up. All right. So the pan gets a little sticky. Respray. Now you can make these into any color. Like I said, if you want to do Rice Krispie trees in green for Christmas, or different fun pastel colors for Easter, right? Okay, that's going to be good enough. I'm going to stop there so we can have time to do this, right? So you can see my little balls of orange cereal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shape them more into a ball shape real quick. And then each of these is going to get a stem. Right? So now for stems, you have lots of choices, right? Depends on what you have on hand. So you can use pretzels, pieces of pretzel rods. Today, I'm going to use Tootsie Rolls, but I've also seen them with Rolo candies as well. So anything that has a stem shape, but you want to make sure that it's edible, right? You want people to be able to eat the whole thing. All right, but now you can see why greasing your hands, right, critical. That little bit of pan spray makes it so much easier to work with all these, okay? So I'm going to grab my Tootsie Rolls. Now, I already took the Tootsie Rolls out of their wrappers. I'm just stirring my chocolate here real quick. I'll show you this in a second. Okay. So now for these, that's why you take them out of the wrappers ahead of time. Makes it a little bit easier to work with, right? And that pumpkin shape, it's not round like a ball. So I kind of like to flatten them down a little bit as like, right? Because a real pumpkin has more of a dome shape, right? You know, kind of like that. But putting the Tootsie Roll in will definitely help that too, get that shape. Just like that there. You want to do this before this hardens up, or you won't be able to get them in. And just use your hands to mold as you go. Right? So these are quick, they're fun. So if you're having a party, you know, maybe a small one, you got to stay home this year, you want something fun to do on Halloween on Saturday, right? This is a great little quick thing that you can put together. And once these are put together, then you get to decorate them, right? I'm going to show you with the melting chocolate. But you could use canned frosting. You could make homemade frosting. You can put on, you know, anything that you could stick on with little candy eyes, you know, all kinds of options. Halloween's a great holiday to really be creative, right? Keep it fun. All right. So here's all my little pumpkins. Like I said, nice and easy. Nice little stem. Okay. Now, back to the melting chocolate part, right? With the candy melts here, they don't take long to melt. I have this on really low just so I could do things with you guys while this was doing its thing. And so the green I'm going to use to pipe some leaves on the top to make it look like a pumpkin, right? You can start to see this is almost melted all the way through. Chocolate one is taking a little longer. I'm going to turn the heat back up on this one. That was a little too low. I'm going to be using that one second anyway, so that's okay. That's why you want to have a towel handy so that you can hold on to the edge of the bowl. Right? Just make sure to keep it away from the burner. So now, to be able to pipe these, I'm just going to use some disposable cake decorating bags. But if you don't have these at home, you can use a Ziploc bag, right? So I could take, you know, a bag like this, fill it up with my chocolate, and just snip a little bit off the end and still be able to pipe, right? And then you can just literally zip this up so nothing comes out the back end of it. So you don't have to have super fancy stuff. But if you do happen to have them, right, little disposable decorating bag, I'm going to use a little V-cut shape leaf tip, right, just to put in the bag. So you need to cut a little bit off the end of the bag to put a tip in. You can also cut the bag itself into a V shape on the end to make your own tip that way. Right. So I just want to have it so about a third to a half of the tip comes out the end of the bag, right? And I want to make sure it's snug so that the chocolate's not going to leak out all over the place. Now, when you're filling decorating bags, easiest way to do this is to fold it down halfway and open it up, right, to make a little cuff. So now I have a place to put my hand inside. So when I am putting the chocolate in, I can hold the bag steady at the same time. You try to just open the bag and pour it in. It gets all over the outside, the inside, your shoes, everywhere else. Okay. Nobody wants that. All right. So in the other bag, I'm just going to put a little small number 5 round tip. This is going to be for the chocolate to do some faces. Right. Like I said, so you can get really creative. You can make faces. You can put eyes on them. This is just going to need another second here. Just want to make sure this green is really nice and smooth. Now, you got to be really careful, too, when you take these chocolates off the stove because this has been sitting over a pan of water. There's going to be a lot of water condensation on the bottom of the bowl. So as you pull this, it will drip hot water, right? So you got to make sure that you're careful and have a towel to put underneath it. So that way you're not getting burnt. Okay. You also want to make sure you don't drip that water over whatever you're making, right? Because it could ruin your dessert. Nice and shiny. You can buy these candy melts in all kinds of colors. Just look at the cake decorating section of your big chain stores, right? Craft stores, things like that. But you can also color the chocolate as well. But you got to make sure that you're using candy coloring, not these same ones that I use for the pumpkins. You want to make sure that it specifically says candy coloring that is oil-based. Because if you use something like this that's water-based, like I did in the Rice Krispies, it will seize up the chocolate and like a hard big lump. Right? Nobody wants that. So like I said, so be careful when you're taking it off the heat. Dry it off here with my towel. Right, just set it on the towel to go. And then I'm going to use this for my leaves. Right. Now, if this starts to get too cold and thicken up, just put it back on the heat. Okay. If I didn't melt enough and I need to add more, add some in, put it back on the heat, right? So just keep it on and off. You just don't want it to be on the heat so long that it's going to seize and dry up. Like I said, I've got this one on here a little bit lower. I don't need it yet. So here's my bag, right? And here is my green melting chocolate, right? It's so nice. Now, the thing is too, be careful when you're filling it, kind of tuck that tip up for a second, right? As you're holding the bag. So that way you're not spilling the chocolate right out the other end. I don't need all of it. We're just going to start with a little bit. And this will be warm. So you may want to be doing this holding a towel over the bag. The longer you do these kind of things and stuff, you don't feel as much in your hands. I'm going to let that sit for a second. It's a little bit too warm, so I want to let it cool just slightly. Okay. Set this back here. Now I want you to see that with this chocolate, right, it's melting a lot slower, but that's okay. That key is too is breaking that up. And they have these available in light cocoa and dark cocoa. It's just a preference of the color of the chocolate more than anything. The dark cocoa does have a little bit stronger flavor. These are a light cocoa one today. So I want to make sure it's melting, but I'm trying to keep it from getting too hot too fast too. So just stirring as you go, scraping that bowl. So I said that's where those clear bowls come in handy because you cannot see everything melted. So with these here, right, I'm going to come in. I just want to pipe some leaves. So I squeeze wide near the Tootsie Roll, and then I'm going to stop squeezing and pull it out. Okay. Squeeze, stop, and pull. Give me my cute little pumpkin leaves. And because this is melting chocolate, this will set up hard. Okay. And completely edible. You never want to put anything on your treats that are not edible, right? Especially if there's little kids around, because they won't know any better. You don't want anything that's a choking hazard either, right? Paper leaves. Remember to squeeze, stop, and pull. Now you don't get as much definition as if you were using an icing with the melting chocolate, but like I said, I know that this is going to cool fast. If you need to make treats quickly, you can stick these in the fridge for a few minutes, and it'll set that chocolate right up. And so squeeze and pull. Do this up closer so you can see there. And pull. All right. And putting chocolate on too is a good way to hide anything you don't like. Okay. So you could do little squiggly things with the leaves. You could do any of those type of things, you know, that you would see on a normal pumpkin. If you wanted to give it more of a vine effect and things, you could switch and put on a smaller tip to do that. So same thing for that bag. Remember to fold it down for our milk chocolate, right? All right, this is just about set. And those last little bits. Now you can melt chocolate in the microwave as well. I do find that it tends to dry out a little bit more and gets a little bit more of a burnt taste to it if you're not really careful. You'd want to do it at like 50% power in the microwave and only do it like 10, 15 seconds at a time. I find it's just easier to put it on a pan of water. That way I can keep an eye on it while I'm doing other stuff. You don't need to rush it. set this one down right here. All right, and you can see our chocolate. All right, so I got a couple little pieces in there. Just gonna work that out. That residual heat from the bowl, we'll melt that right down. Okay. All right, so then I'm gonna put the same thing. I'm gonna tuck that tip up, right, so it's not pointing down, so it doesn't run right out. And then you can use the chocolate to make some little faces, right? So you can pipe on some little eyes. I don't need a lot for this. I'm just going to do a couple of them for you. So just remember, though, that this is really, really warm. Okay. Probably consider it to be hot once it's in the bag. And that's why you can let it sit and cool down until it's a workable temperature. Okay, so we're going to keep that water off of our table here. Now, with your little pumpkins, right, you can see how that they've kind of made their own little base, right? And they're still a little bit soft, still a little bit moldable. So if you find things that you don't quite like, you can still have a little bit of time to shape them and things like that. But, so you want to look for a good spot to make a face, right? So that you've got a nice angle. So if there's something sticking out or things like that, you know, look around on the sides. And then when you're doing the chocolate, remember to squeeze a little amount because chocolate spreads. Okay, so I'm going to give them some eyes. Chocolate nose. I'm just doing triangles. All right. And just a little zigzag line for my face. Okay. And that's it. Okay. And you can do that. Like I said, just want to let them sit and rest. Okay. Again, real quick. Just make sure. Go. Okay. Like I said, so some little triangle eyes. Right, just like a jack-o'-lantern. You could do these in different colors. Right. Little tiny nose. Okay, so you've got the 3 triangles. Like I said, and just a little loose zigzag, right? Like you're making a bunch of W's. It doesn't have to be perfect because it's a jack-o'-lantern, right? And then you could leave some of them plain, okay? So you don't have to decorate them all. You could decorate some. You can let the kids do this part, right? You can do this part. And that's it. That is your Halloween Rice Krispie Pumpkins. Okay, so if you guys get a chance to try these soon, enjoy.